Hello, everybody. Welcome to the All Day Football Show. I'm your host, as always, Jackson Kellogg. And today we're getting into week 15 of my NFL Power Rankings. Almost at the end of the season. Got 3 more weeks to go in the regular season 15, 16, 17, and then we'll hit playoffs and we'll see what happens going from there. But getting right into it today. At number 32, as they've been here all year, nothing different, the New York Jets, as they still cannot get anything going on any side of the ball. They got absolutely destroyed by the Seahawks. Wasn't even close, 40-3. But all in all, keeps the Jets in the tank as they are still on their way to go take the number 1 draft pick and waste away Trevor Lawrence and yet another great quarterback prospect going to the Jets just to be wasted away. So feels bad. As much as people were like, no, Joe Burrow, don't go to the Bengals. It's even worse situation for Trevor right now. At 31, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They ended up pulling Mike Glennon pretty early in the game, or I think it was the third quarter that he got pulled. But Jacksonville still couldn't get anything going. He got absolutely decimated. Right now, pretty much the Jaguars are on the same path as the Jets, except the Jaguars have 1 win and the Jets don't. So the big issue for the Jags is going to be they're going to lose out on Trevor, but they'll be able to still take Justin Fields, which I guess is a good consolation prize for second place. At the 30th spot, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals got what was expected. The Cowboys went in. Andy Dalton had a revenge game, and he got his revenge. The Cowboys beat up on the Bengals. The Bengals couldn't do anything because this Bengals team has very little talent. It was a very poor decision. Giovanni Bernard fumbles the ball for the first time in over 800 touches, 800 carries, and they bench him. What kind of decision is that? That was just a very poor decision in my opinion. I don't know if Zach Taylor's the right coach for this team going forward, but the first thing this team needs to do is shore up that O-line or Joe Burrow's going to have the same injury that he did last year. At 29, the first movement, the Detroit Lions. Yeah, I know, I moved the Detroit Lions down a lot. This next bit's going to get really weird with the movements due to a lot of teams in like the lower 20s losing, but then teams in the higher 20s winning. Gets a little confusing in here. Well, not confusing, but it gets really mixed. But the Lions at 29, this team is awful, and one of the only positive things for this team is Matthew Stafford. As soon as he comes out, though, this team is just absolutely decimated. The defensive talent is not there. There's no playmakers, and they've been dealing with injuries. And the offense just can't keep up with top offenses like the Packers in this game. They kept it close, but it wasn't close enough to get the win. Lions are probably going to blow it up in this offseason, which what sucks is that Matthew Stafford might get the can along with it, as he has not been the issue for this Lions team over its last decade of just coming up short, as always, every year. At 28, the Dallas Cowboys. The Cowboys stay here for the idea that, they beat the Bengals, but nothing special happened. They still have their own issues that they have to handle. Zeke couldn't get over 100 yards on him in the rushing game, and it wasn't an overly crazy win for the offense. The defense got done what it needed to, but again, it was the Bengals. They're a low-talent team. The Cowboys were expected to be a playoff team going into this year, so not necessarily a great look for them. They're still down towards the bottom here, and they're going to have to win a couple games at the end here to have a chance at moving up a little bit before the end of the season. At the 27th spot, the Philadelphia Eagles. I did not expect the Eagles to win that game. Through this whole season, I have the prediction videos, but then I have like my own things that I think about to myself. But one thing through the whole season was like the Eagles are going to beat the Saints. I felt it. The Eagles were going to beat the Saints all year. The Eagles, they can get blown out and destroyed by teams they're supposed to beat. And then just at the moment where you think they're going to get blown out by a team, they come to play. Jalen Hurts played well in his first start. Carson Wentz is still going to sit on the bench. Jalen Hurts is getting the nod to start next week as well. So we'll see how he can do in his second career start. The Eagles just put themselves in a quarterback predicament where their backup, who's a rookie, is now playing better than the starter who is on a 4-year, $120 million extension that pays about $80 million in guarantees. This is why Howie Roseman needs to be fired. At the 26th spot, the Carolina Panthers, they did not get the win against the Broncos. They showed up in the Super Bowl 50 rematch. Drew Lock and company came to play, and Teddy Bridgewater could not keep up. Mike Davis had himself a game, but he's no Christian McCaffrey. This team was not, it couldn't overcome the injuries that it had on the offensive side. With DJ Moore and McCaffrey both out, they just didn't have the offensive weapons to be able to overcome any deficits that the Broncos just kept putting at them. Panthers, again, they're low on this list, but they are a competitive team. They do have a bright outlook going forward, and it's not like I'm not bashing them, but they're just not at the place where they need to be right now. But they are going to get there eventually. But we'll see how that goes, as the NFL likes to change what does and doesn't work. At the 25 spot, speaking of, is the Denver Broncos. Drew Lock has put together a nice couple weeks here where he doesn't look like a complete waste of a second-round pick. And he actually looks like he has some talent to him. And that's what the Broncos want to see out of him. They want to see the good decision maker, the one who can make plays when needed. And that's exactly what Drew Lock did to go get a win. Granted, it was against a young, developing Panthers team, but a win is a win, and with the stats that he put up, it is a good outlook. We'll see if he can continue it for the rest of the year. And if that does, that might just be able to keep him along for a third year as the starter. But we'll see how that goes. At the 24 spot, the Atlanta Falcons. I thought that was going to be game of the week, or one of the games of the week. I had Steelers Bills as the game of the week. Boy, we had the game of the year in this week, and it wasn't either of these games. We'll get into that a little later. But anyways, Falcons Chargers. It was the battle of the chokers, and the Falcons choked the hardest. No matter which team kept trying to ruin it for themselves, it was the Chargers who eventually pulled through with the game-winning field goal. Falcons slunched down even further, as this team is going to go into a semi-rebuild in this offseason in which they can't get rid of two players that you would most likely get rid of in a rebuild if money were not an issue, because you would be able to get stuff from, aka Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. Matt Ryan was never the problem with the Falcons. It was always coaching and the defense. I don't think Matt Ryan is ever to blame for the issues that have happened with the Falcons. Or if you do want to place blame on him, there's plenty of people that need to be higher on that list, because Matt Ryan did what he could. That Super Bowl loss, maybe partially his fault. But if you want to blame the horrible state of the franchise, you cannot put it on Matt Ryan right now. At 23, the Chicago Bears. Boy, did they blow out Houston Texans. I got lucky in fantasy this week because Deshaun Watson did absolutely nothing against this Bears defense. The Bears looked good as a whole unit for one of the first times this year. Mitch Trubisky was chucking the ball wherever it needed to be. The offense was making plays for one of the first times this year. We're now seeing that it was a horrible decision to make Nick Foles the starter for a little bit, because if not, although Mitch Trubisky isn't the greatest quarterback ever, he makes better plays than Nick Foles does. Nick Foles is a flat, below average game manager. Mitch Trubisky isn't a game manager, and we're starting to see that, in the NFL, you don't get game managers anymore. You either get a very talented Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Josh Allen-esque type player, or you get a Jameis Winston or any other playmaker who has a low floor. And we're seeing that Trubisky is one of those players where he's inconsistent. He didn't make as many good plays as Jameis Winston would. I think we're going to see that in the offseason here where the Bears aren't going to sign him and nobody's going to give Trubisky really that much of a chance to go for a starting job because Trubisky really needs development and the Bears never really gave him that opportunity. They never got him the weapons he needed. His only main weapon was Allen Robinson, and Robinson doesn't want to be there, so he doesn't want to take the time to develop a young quarterback like that. So Trubisky needs to go to a situation that's going to benefit him. In my opinion, the Saints might be a good team for him to go to. Any team that's looking that has an older quarterback that may be interested in developing a younger one. The Colts might be a good place to go as well. There are a couple teams that might be interested, but I definitely don't think Trubisky is going to be a starter on any team next year. But the Bears do have a bright spot to go look at for a late season possible playoff push, which I don't think it'll happen, but it's more likely than the Patriots making it. At the 22 spot, the New York Giants. The Giants did not look like the team that knocked off the Seahawks. Daniel Jones looked flat against the Cardinals as they just got allowed sack after sack after sack. Hassan Reddick had 5 sacks in this game. I think they had 8 total sacks. That is not what you want to do. That's like Bengals numbers right there. Terrible play by the Giants. They ended up pulling Daniel Jones before the end of the game. I don't know how much of this was on the idea that Daniel Jones was still dealing with the injury. We'll see how much that comes into play. The Giants look like they just lost their opportunity to take the division. Looks like Washington's going to steal it with possibly a winning record. We'll see how they finish off the season, as they do have a chance to go at best 9-7 in their final 3 games, as they sit at 6-7, whereas the Giants right now sit, I believe, at 5-8. So looks like the Giants lost out on their chances. Obviously, there is still the possibility, but I doubt it will come through. The Giants' defense didn't come through when it needed to in this game, and the offense is just barren. And when in a time where you need offense to be able to keep up with teams, the Giants just don't have that right now. At 21, the Vikings. The Vikings kept it closer than I thought against the Buccaneers. The defense played well, but I think it was more any team that does well defensively against the Buccaneers. I feel like it's more just the issues that the Buccaneers have. They don't have chemistry right now on the offensive side of the ball at all, and that's what I think happens when you throw a lot of weapons on one team. Is that you see it in the NBA where a lot of teams that try to get a whole lot of all-stars on one team, it doesn't necessarily work out. Look at the Thunder. I don't know what one it was. I'm not a huge basketball fan. But at one time, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and Kevin Durant were all on one team. And they didn't win a championship. So if you were to look at that in today's world, like if you were to put James Harden, Russell Westbrook, and Kevin Durant as all-stars in one team right now in 2020, you'd be like, oh my god, this team's going to go, they're going to go beat the Lakers. You know, if Harden, Durant, and Westbrook all were on the Nets, you're saying that team is going to the finals. They didn't. And this is what we're seeing with the Buccaneers. You've got, just on the offensive side alone, you can name talents like Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown. Ronald Jones is their worst offensive starter. Or skill position. The O-line isn't bad when they don't have any injuries going on, but I believe their center's out for the year is what I saw. A.Q. Shipley, I think that was. But the Vikings, they got done what they needed to. They're gonna fall out of the hunt against the rest of the NFC wildcard. Kind of blanking here. Long day. But no, the Vikings, they got the loss. It's going to hurt them in their wild card push, and they're going to start to lose favor where teams like the Cardinals and the Rams are going to just make their leads even bigger. The LA Chargers at number 20. Chargers coming off of a blowout loss against the Patriots where they lost 45-0 on all 3 parts of the ball. They come in, get a win against the Falcons where Justin Herbert had to be a leader and bring them to a win, where, for once, the special teams didn't screw them over in a game where they actually kicked a game-winning field goal. Chargers not really playing for much right now. I think they got officially eliminated from the playoffs. Good time when you get eliminated from the playoffs, if I were a coach, I once you're eliminated, I think it's at that point you want to take uh any veterans that you might not think will be there in the offseason. You want to put a lot of younger players on rookie contracts out there. See what you have, if you have any playmakers, any duds. See what you need to build on in the offseason. Uh, Sadly, the Patriots are in a weird spot where they can still technically compete for a wild card, but they're most likely not going to get it. So we'll see what happens in that aspect. But Chargers, they're going to look to get some late season wins here. Not going to mean anything. Just going to be more of a morale booster for the next season. But Justin Herbert definitely looks like the quarterback for the future of at least the next decade for the Chargers. At 19, the Houston Texans. Texans got blown out by the Bears. No other words you could put into it. They looked awful. The defense could not stop one of the worst offenses in the league in the Chicago Bears, and the offense couldn't get anything going on their own. Granted, they've dealt with a lot of new changes on the offense. A lot of guys injured. Will Fuller suspended. Not what they expected at this point in the season, and it really hurt their late season win push without Bill O'Brien. I think that pretty much just puts their season to an end. Similar with the Chargers, take your older guys out of there, see what you have in your younger players, what you can build with, what you're not going to be able to, what you're going to need to go get in free agency and the draft, and we'll see what they can do next year. They're saying that Deshaun Watson's going to be involved in the. He's not part of the committee, but he will be involved in getting the next head coach for this team. So we'll see who they bring in. Hopefully, not a complete dud like last time in O'Brien. At 18, the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers got beat by the Washington football team. Alex Smith ended up having to leave the game, and the 49ers lost because they couldn't handle the Washington defense. The offense couldn't get anything going, and they let two defensive touchdowns happen on them with a scoop and score and a pick six. Not how you win football games. The 49ers defense got done what they needed to. The Washington didn't score any offensive touchdowns, which is weird when you look at the score. But the 49ers, clearly Nick Mullins is not the answer, but they don't know if Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be the answer. So we'll see how they can do with that coming into the offseason. They're still technically competing for a wild card. I doubt they get it, though, with the Buccaneers, Rams, and Cardinals pretty much solidifying those spots. But the 49ers are a competitive team under Shanahan. This season the losses do not fall under Shanahan or John Lynch, as they have been they've done very well at their jobs this season. Both John Lynch and getting depth together for this team, and Kyle Shanahan for being able to manage it. This team should have had 2 wins this whole year, and they were able to come away with more. So kudos to the 49ers for going out and competing and getting wins. At 17, the Washington football team. This team, offensively, they still have a lot of things they need to figure out. Getting Gibson in a week or two will definitely help for the playoffs, as they are expected to win the NFC East. Alex Smith, his injury is still questionable. It is unknown whether he's going to be able to play next week, but we'll see in that situation. The defense is a top 10 defense right now. That defensive line is a top 3 D line, led by Chase Winovich, who is just a beast on there. Payne is a beast on there. Montez Sweat, all these guys, they get to the quarterback like nothing, and they're not a one-dimensional defensive line. They could stop the run. They can contain the edge. They can rush the quarterback. They can get pressures. They can get sacks. And then they can even get fumbles returned for touchdowns. In Chase Young's case, this is a very good team, a very scary defensive team. They might honestly compete with whoever they pull at the first wild card spot, but the 5th seed. With Washington making the playoffs, they'd be a 4 seed, meaning they'd play 5. And I honestly think that Washington would be able to put up a fight against whoever that 5 seed is. Whether it's the Buccaneers, the Rams, the Cardinals, Seahawks, or Saints. Packers look like they're going to take up that 1st seed. At 16, my beloved New England Patriots. Wow. You go from absolutely destroying the Chargers 45 nothing and giving many Patriots fans hope as they sat at a 6-6 record at a point where if they won out, they would have over 90% chance to make the playoffs according to many models. Where did that team go on Thursday? This team looked awful. Cam Newton is clearly not the future of this team. He is a great leader. I love him as a guy, as a person, but not a quarterback. He cannot throw the football. He has a very awkward throwing motion that leads me to believe that he never fully healed from his shoulder injury. His balls nosedive into the ground. He very rarely gets has the ability to throw the deep ball. That might be the answer as to why every time he goes to throw the deep ball, he just pulls it back in and scrambles for a yard or gets sacked. This team does not look very good. It does not deserve a playoff spot, and they have a ton of work that they're going to need to do to figure out this offseason. I think if the right moves are made, this team can come back and compete for possibly the playoffs and even a Super Bowl if the right quarterback is brought in and other moves are made. They have some things they're going to need to figure out on the O-line. Joe Thuney, David Andrews both have contracts expiring. They need to get receivers for whoever the quarterback will be, and they need to get some run stoppers as Cam Akers ran for over 170 yards, almost 100 yards in just the first quarter alone. This is absolutely an embarrassment for the Patriots, and they need to get their stuff together to finish out this season, or they might finish with a losing record for the first time since 2002. At the 15th spot, the Las Vegas Raiders. This Raiders team is so inconsistent. They can go win games. They're the only team to beat the Chiefs this year. If you told me that the Raiders were the only team to beat the Chiefs this year, I'd be like, oh my gosh, they must be kicking butt against other teams then. No, they get blown out by the Colts, who don't have the greatest offense. Jordan Taylor ran all over the Raiders' defense. They could not stop him, and Phillip Rivers didn't have to do anything. They allowed 44 points to an average at best offense. That is not good at all for a team that right now is on the outside looking in of the wild card hunt, as the Chiefs locked up the division, meaning the Raiders are going to have to take a wild card position. No one expected them to take the division anyway. But still, they're on the outside looking in. They have to deal with the Ravens, who are about to go on a hot streak with one of the easiest schedules in football to close the season, as well as the Dolphins and the Colts, who sit at better records in front of them. Expect the Raiders to possibly miss the playoffs due to the fact that they cannot compete when it is needed. At 14, a team who can compete when it is needed, the Miami Dolphins, who went toe-to-toe, throw-to-throw with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. They got 3 interceptions on Mahomes in that game. Very good play by the Dolphins. It did end up leading to a loss, but no matter. The Dolphins do look like a competitive team. They look like they can compete against just about anyone in the AFC when they get their consistency and chemistry going. When this team doesn't fall flat, they can get steamrolled by anyone, but when they come to compete, they can compete with just about any team in the league. This defense keeps them in games. Xavier Howard is one of the best cornerbacks in football right now, leads the league in interceptions, 5 straight games with an interception, and is one of the leaders of this Dolphins defense. And Tua looks like a great bright spot who can make plays and do what needs to be done to go try and get a win. They eventually did get the loss, but good play by the Dolphins other than that one safety. But other than that, the Dolphins look great, and they look like they're going to be a beast when they hit the playoffs. At 13, the Arizona Cardinals, they don't move after their win against the Giants. Not too significant. Granted, you can say it's significant for the fact that the Seahawks couldn't beat the Giants, and the Cardinals beat them pretty convincingly. Cardinals just trying to get wins to avoid getting yoinked out of the playoffs. Right now, they're sitting at the 7th wildcard spot, most likely going to take it, but they do have to shore up some things. The defense looked great against a terrible offensive line. If that defense can consistently play that well, the Cardinals will be able to play against any team, as the offense, when it catches fire, is very tough to beat with all the playmakers that they have on that offense, with Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins leading that core. The Cardinals are going to be very scary, if not this year, definitely in future years when Kyler Murray is more developed. this team is going to be a lot more consistent. Imagine DeAndre Hopkins didn't have an offseason to get chemistry with Kyler Murray, and look at how they play right now. They're beasts together. Now give them a full offseason where they can work together. Mwah, chef's kiss. This Cardinals team is going to be very good for the next decade if they make the right franchise moves to help save this team from falling into a cavern of no end. At 12, the Colts, who blew out the Raiders, as I mentioned not too long ago. Somehow they're winning games. The defense isn't, they're not elite, but they get the plays when they're needed. That was a beautiful interception by Kenny Moore. I don't know how in the world he got that. But they scored 44 points on a Raiders defense. That can come to play at times when needed. They obviously didn't this time. Colts steamrolled over them. That looked straight out of Madden. That 70-yard rushing touchdown by Jonathan Taylor. There were three guys that I felt like that was Madden, where you're chasing the AI running back and you're pressing down on X to try and get a dive tackle to try and stop him, but it won't dive, or when it does dive, he just stumbles over, and you're like, you didn't even dive, Anyways, Colts, they got a win. It looks like they're going to solidify a playoff spot. I apologize to all Colts fans, because between the Colts and the Steelers, I definitely got those two teams wrong in saying that they're overrated. The Colts are definitely competitive. I don't know if they're Super Bowl contenders like some people thought, but they're definitely playoff contenders, and they will compete in the playoffs when they get there. And possibly they are still in the battle for the division, so we'll see if they can take it at the end of the season here. At number 11, to anyone who was like, the Rams, why are they so low? Why are they at the 17 spot? I apologize. I reward the Rams for that absolute butt kicking of the Patriots. The score does not tell the whole story. The Rams absolutely destroyed the Patriots in that game on all cylinders. They looked like a playoff team. They looked like a contender. They looked like they could possibly go to the Super Bowl. We'll see. This NFC is looking very interesting. There's no clear-cut person or team. I don't know why I said person. There's no clear-cut team that's going to be able to come and steal it. Jared Goff came to play against the Patriots and just was helped a lot by a great supporting cast of an offense. And that defense is filled with many playmakers in Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey. This is a team that can compete against anyone when they come to play, and they look like they're going to go on a tear going into the playoffs. Cracking into the top 10, we got the Titans moving up a spot at number 10 for their absolute steamrolling of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Derrick Henry rushed for over 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's done that 4 times in his career. No other running back has done that, and he still has many years to go. We'll see if Derrick Henry can continue to lead his teams into victories. I think he leads the league in rushing yards, still looks to get a back-to-back-to-back crown in that, as he took it in 2018 and 2019, and he'll look to take it again in 2020. The defense still has some things they need to figure out. They do have issues on the defensive side of the ball, and they are pretty easy to figure out on the offensive side. It's just a matter of stopping what you know is coming, and that's very hard to do when you have King Henry coming at 20 miles an hour right at you when he's twice your size. That must be a very scary scene. At number 9, the Cleveland Browns. I didn't want to move them down 3, but I kind of had to. That was the game of the year. I only was able to catch the second half, but Browns-Ravens, that was such a beauty of a game. Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson went toe-to-toe, play for play. Lamar Jackson even left during the game to go to the locker room. They said he had cramps, quote-unquote, maybe. There's a joke that he was pulling a Paul Pierce where he had to use the bathroom. He denied those claims, but he came back, got the Ravens the win. That was a beautiful closing to a game. Baker Mayfield thought he got his team the win, then the Ravens. Boy, Justin Tucker is one of the best kickers of all time. I don't trust any other kicker in that situation, except maybe Vinatieri in his prime, but nobody other than Tucker to make that kick. That was a beauty. Would have been good from even further. 55-yarder to finish the game off. I think it was a little bit of poor management to finish off the game there by the Ravens. They did get lucky with some other plays. They left a little bit too much time on the clock, but it didn't matter. The Ravens got the win. The Browns took the loss. The Browns are a team to be reckoned with. They are not a fake contender. They're not a pretender. They are going to beat teams to finish off the season, and they might just they could even compete for a Super Bowl here. I don't know if they'll be able to beat a team like the Chiefs, but they've definitely shown that they could compete against a team like the Ravens, which means not too many teams are far off. I'd say the only teams that are in tier 1 would be Chiefs, Ravens. Then I'd throw a whole lot of teams in that tier 2 between Steelers, Browns, Ravens, Titans, Colts. So the Browns have beat one of those and competed against the other two. So they beat 3 of them because they beat the Titans. They beat 2 in the Titans and the Colts, and then they lost to the Ravens twice, but they are a very competitive team. They can go win games, and they've proven it many times this year, and they proved it that they can keep up with some of the best teams in the Ravens. At number 8, the Baltimore Ravens. That was, again, it was just a beautiful game. The Ravens, they showed that they are still a competitor. They're trying to take over a playoff spot that are occupied right now by the Browns, Colts, and Dolphins. We'll see if they can snatch one of those spots from one of those teams. I think the Browns have kind of staked their claim for one of their spots. I think the Colts, Dolphins ones are more up for grabs. But we'll see what happens. The Ravens showed that they have not fallen completely flat. They're still competing. They're still grinding. And they're still going to go compete in games. I am a little worried about the Madden curse here, though, as I thought Lamar Jackson got early hurt again. The curse is real, man. The curse is real. At 7, the Pittsburgh Steelers, who suffered their second straight loss after starting 11-0 on the season, as the Buffalo Bills knocked them off. The Steelers did not look good in this game at all. Their drops continued in this game, and they were not able to get anything going against the Bills. The Bills just steamrolled them. Stephon Diggs tore up that Steelers defense that was meant to be a very scary force to be reckoned with. They did not look so scary as one receiver tore him up. Josh Allen looked on point. He looked like a MVP candidate. Now, I don't think he takes the MVP, but he's definitely going to be up there in the conversations. Steelers, on the other hand, though, need to be careful of not pulling the Patriots and losing a lot of games in the second half of the season and then getting beat in the first round of the playoffs. They need to keep pushing for wins, or else they could get screwed going into the end of the season. At number 6, the Seahawks. They killed the Jets, no other way to put it. Jamal Adams broke the record for most sacks by a defensive back in a season in the NFL at 8.5, and he was out for a couple games too. That's pretty surprising. But the Seahawks, they're a good team. I wouldn't put them as the Super Bowl contender for the NFC yet. They still do have issues they need to figure out. This was the one game where the defense and the offense both played well. The defense did its job in holding the Jets down. Granted, it's not that hard with it being the Jets. But the offense, they killed a terrible Jets defense that really doesn't have a leader right now. The Seahawks, I want to see what they can do in the playoffs. If they lose out in the first round, then that wouldn't shock me. But if they do win, then it would legitimize that they are a legit team. But I'm a little skeptical right now, considering that this team, other than the Jets game, is either really good on offense and terrible on defense, or really good on defense and terrible on offense. That worries me a little bit, going against high-powered offenses like the Rams, the Cardinals, the Packers. We'll see if they are either going to be able to hold them off defensively or be able to keep up with their scoring. At number 5, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They got lucky with the win against the Vikings. They definitely did not play great, but their move is more based off of other teams around them. They got the win, though, no matter. Similar to the Seahawks, but more of a different situation. I'm a little skeptical about this team in the playoffs. They don't have the chemistry that they need on offense. If this team had any chemistry at all, they would be blowing teams out of the water. When you have to throw a cornerback 3 on Antonio Brown, that just scares the living. Oof, I don't. There's no words to put it. If when you have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Antonio Brown, and Rob Gronkowski all lined up, and you still can't score 40 points in a game against a team like the Vikings defense is terrible, and you still can't do anything against it. That's just awful by the Buccaneers. And I think it might honestly lead to a Bruce Arians firing if they can't do well in the playoffs here. I wouldn't be surprised if Bruce Arians got fired at the end of this year. At number 4, the New Orleans Saints. Saints got knocked off by the underdog Philadelphia Eagles. The Saints, I saw this coming a little bit, but they get beat. It is the Saints' first loss without Drew Brees as the starter in a couple years, as they were 8-0 coming into this game without Drew Brees as the starter, 5-0 with Bridgewater, and now they are 3-1 with Taysom Hill. The offense couldn't get anything going against a barren Eagles defense that, though they don't have the best talent, was able to make the plays to keep the Saints from scoring. And I don't think this is too much of an issue for the Saints. Every team has a hump every now and then. This is what I think the Saints hump going into the playoffs, as long as they don't let it steamroll into more losses. They bounce back from it. And as long as that happens, I got no worries for them, and they're still my NFC choice to go to the Super Bowl. At number 3, the Buffalo Bills. The Bills are official. They are a legitimate contender. Though the Chiefs blew them out, I do think the Bills, this is a different team that played them. I think as when the Bills reach the playoffs, if they can prove in the first round that they have the competitiveness to go win a first round game. They got knocked off last year by the Texans, but I think this team is going to be legit. The defense isn't as good as it was last year, but it's okay as they're still average at the worst, and the offense is a lot better than it was last year. The defense had to carry the offense last year. There's no need for that this year. Josh Allen has made his accuracy 10 times better. Stephon Diggs was an amazing addition for this team, very needed, and they have plenty of weapons to spread the ball around to, other than Diggs, between Cole Beasley, Isaiah McKenzie, Gabriel Davis, Dawson Knox. They do what they need to get the win. And this Bills team, I don't know who I'd rather play. If I'm the Patriots, boy, that's going to be a tough game for them at the end of the year as they play the Bills in Week 16. That game's going to be very telling for the Bills. If the Bills don't blow out the Patriots in that game, then I might have a little bit more skepticism just for the fact of what the Patriots are as a team. They're good defensively when they put up the right game plan, but the offense is just terrible. So if the Bills' defense can't hold off that Patriots rushing attack, because that's all the Patriots have, because Cam Newton can't throw, then I'll start to have a little bit of doubts on the Bills. But right now, the Bills look like the third best team in the league right now. At number 2, the Green Bay Packers. The Packers got a win against the Lions. It was a little closer than I expected, but a win is a win. Aaron Rodgers looks like the MVP frontrunner right now. There isn't like a definitive MVP right now this year. It's anywhere between Rodgers, Mahomes again, Russell Wilson, Derrick Henry, Dalvin Cook, Josh Allen even. It's going to get very interesting when the MVP voting comes around, but the Packers look like after that Saints loss are going to take the number 1 seed. They guaranteed themselves the playoff spot, but the Packers, they got done what they needed to. Aaron Rodgers still trying to prove that he is the quarterback of this team. Jordan Love, who will eventually replace him, he's just trying to fend off when he gets replaced by Jordan Love. And I think with this play, there's no way you can get rid of Aaron Rodgers this year. I really don't. If they do, that's just a terrible decision. Aaron Rodgers is the life of this team, and you're going to diminish a lot of people and fans, as well as people inside the organization, if you get rid of Aaron Rodgers right now. And that puts the team at the number 1 spot of the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs, they held off the Dolphins, who competed with them. Mahomes threw for 3 interceptions. I think one of the first time he threw 3 interceptions in a game in forever. He allowed that crazy sack too, longest sack in like a couple decades as a 30-yard sack. But the Chiefs are still the best team in the league. There is nobody close. The defense is they're good. They're not like a elite defense, but they don't need to be because they have the best offense in the league. Tyreek Hill is showing that he's a top 5 receiver, and he does it with his speed. He's starting to become a more refined receiver, and he's showing that he doesn't only run go routes. He's starting to become an actual wide receiver, and that's scary to look at for the Chiefs because then you have to deal with all the different moves that Tyreek Hill will make because of his speed. They're starting to use him in all different facets. And then you still have to look out for Travis Kelce, who's clearly the number one tight end in the league right now. It's debatable when when George Kittle is healthy. But this season, it definitely goes to Travis Kelce as the number one tight end. I think the Chiefs steal the AFC and go to the Super Bowl no matter who they play. The Super Bowl is going to go through Kansas City no matter who it is. And I think it's going to be tough to knock them off. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It would be greatly appreciated. Hope you all have a great rest of your week. Thursday Night Football, I believe, is Raiders-Chargers, so I'll get you game picks before Thursday's game. Anyways, have a great rest of your week, and even though they're most likely out of the playoffs, be sure to root for those Patriots against the Dolphins on Sunday.